Hello friends, welcome to Easy Learning Economics. I am Dr. Kheval. Today we shall learn about ISLM model, that is also called Hicks-Hansen model. In 1937, a British economist, John Hicks, introduced this model after introduction of Keynes' theory of employment, interest and money. Later on, Alvin Hansen extended this model and performed mathematical work. That's why it is known as Hicks-Hansen model or ISLM curve model. What does IS stands for? IS means investment and saving, and where that LM represents the liquidity preference or real money supply. The interest rate is shown on y-axis, whereas the real GDP or output is shown on x-axis. IS is the investment saving curve. When the interest rate is 5%, the economy is producing Y2 real GDP or output. As the interest rate increases from 5 to 6%, real GDP decreases from Y2 to Y1. When the interest rate is high, economy fails to meet the planned investment. As a result, an economy is not having high real GDP, and if interest rate decreases, investment goes up and real GDP also increases. As the interest rate decreases from 5 to 4%, the real GDP increases from Y1 to Y3. It means investment is decreasing function of interest rate. Decreasing function, it means that when the two variables move in the opposite direction, like price and quantity demand, investment is decreasing function of interest rate and increasing function of sale. It means when the sale increases, the investment increases. When the sale decreases, the investment decreases. ISLM curve is a two-way relationship. One is that real interest rate decides the investment, and investment decides real GDP. It means the interest rate decides the investments and investment decides the real GDP. ISLM curve, we said that it is a two-way relationship, that interest rate decides investment and investment decides real GDP. On the other side, the GDP drives savings and saving drives interest rate. It means when the real GDP increases, the savings also increases. It means the more funds are available for lending. As a result, the interest rate goes down. If we are having high real GDP and other things are held constant, including the government spending and consumer spending, then we shall be with more savings and interest rate will go down. That's why IS investment saving curve is downward sloping curve. This is saving driving way and real interest driving investment. That's why it is called the IS curve. Now what is LM curve? LM stands for the liquidity preference or real money supply curve. Here the real money supply we have to understand. You can see here that M0 over CPI. CPI represent here the inflation, means the consumer price index. Means M0 over CPI, it means the inflation adjusted money supply. If M0, the money supply goes up but price remains constant, then the real money supply increases. If M0, the money supply remains constant but prices have increased, then real money supply is said to have gone down. Inflation adjusted money supply is known as the real money supply, remember. So the liquidity preference means the demand for money is assumed constant here. You can see here that interest rate is shown on y-axis and the real GDP is measured on the x-axis, and this is the LM or the real money supply curve. Economy is producing the real GDP Y2 when the interest rate is 5%. So when the real GDP or output is Y2, the rate of interest on borrowed capital is 5%. An increase in the economic activities from Y2 to Y3 would lead to rise demand for money, and rise in demand for money lead to rise the real interest rate from 5 to 6%. Low economic activities don't increase the demand for money as much, and interest rate goes down from 5 to 4%. It means liquidity preference and interest rate have direct relationship. Now we will see how the monetary policy affect on the investment and saving curve. In the short term period, it is assumed here that prices are sticky and excess capacity is available for the production of goods in the closed economy. This model works under the closed economy. Closed economy is also known as two-sector economy, in which the saving and investments are equal. If you want to learn about the closed economy and how that saving and investments are equal under closed economy, that the links are given. Interest rate is measured on the y-axis and the real GDP is measured on the x-axis. IS is the investment saving curve, that is downward sloping due to inverse relationship with interest rate, and LM is the real money supply, which intersect the investment saving curve at E point at the interest rate of 5%. The goods market and money market are in equilibrium at point E. If central bank decides to print more money and real money supply increases, causing LM curve to shift rightward from LM to LM dash, as a result the interest rate goes down and real GDP increases from Y1 to Y2 and new equilibrium is achieved at E dash. We have noticed here, as money supply increases, interest rate decreases from 5 to 4% and real GDP increases. Now we will see that how does the fiscal policy affect on the investment and saving curve. Interest rate is shown on y-axis, real GDP is measured on the x-axis, IS is the investment saving curve, and LM is the real money supply curve, and the equilibrium in the goods market and money market is achieved at point E, where economy is producing the Y1 output and at the 4% interest rate. If now consumption, investment or government increases expenditure under fiscal policy, then IS curve shift rightward from IS to IS dash and interest rate increases from 4 to 5% and output increases from Y1 to Y2 and the economy is said to be in equilibrium at E dash point. Please note here, under fiscal policy effect, as the government increased expenditure, the interest rate increases from 4 to 5% and real GDP increases because GDP output increases. Due to increase in GDP, income increases, money demand increases, but the money supply remains constant. As you can see here, there is no change in money supply. The money supply is staying constant, and as a result the interest rate increases. While under monetary policy effect, in the previous slide we noticed that as money supply increased from LM to LM dash, interest rate decreased from 5 to 4% and real GDP increased. Now we shall discuss that what are the merits and demerits, pros and cons of ISLM model. ISLM model, this model is good for policy making and keep the economy in balance through an equilibrium of money supply versus interest rate, because the interest rate decides liquidity preference and helps to achieve the macroeconomic stability. What are the demerits or disadvantages of ISLM model? It ignores the effectiveness lag effect. Here we have used the word the effectiveness lag effect. It means the time needed once the changes have been made in the fiscal and monetary policy to introduce the effect of that changes, that is called the effectiveness lag effect. So it ignores the effectiveness lag effect and it is a comparative static equilibrium model. This is fixed price model. How? Because it fails to explain the effect of demand pull and cost push inflation and rational expectations of price. It is based on unrealistic assumptions. So these are the merits and demerits of the ISLM model. We are summarizing here whatever we discussed. So we can say that ISLM model shows two-way relationship, investment equals saving, and liquidity preference on the demand for money equals with the supply of money at the various level of the interest rate in two-sector economy. It guides how the real interest rate determines investment, how investment made in the two-sector economy affect real GDP, and real GDP decides savings, and saving decides interest rate in the closed economy. A downward sloping IS curve represents a short-run equilibrium in the goods market linked with the real GDP Y and interest rate R. Liquidity preference real money supply shows a short-run equilibrium in the money market linking real GDP Y and interest rate R. The ISLM curve intersection decides the value of real GDP and real interest rate. It is all about the investment, saving and the real money supply ISLM curve model. And if you want to learn that how the ISLM model functions under the open economy, so you can watch my video on the Mundell-Fleming model. So I hope this would be helpful for you. Thanks for watching.